What was the selection process like?
Much tougher than I could ever have anticipated. I don't think anything really prepares you for Marines training. As I was getting to know more and more Russian people and actually getting to know them, that's when you find that after a period of time, usually about 6 months, once they realize that they can trust you, all the barriers are down. And yeah, the lowest point was I went to my bank, I put in my card in the cash point, I checked out the statement or checked out the balance, and it was 25 quid.
Welcome to Southside Stories, the podcast about real London business, hosted by Matt Whittingham.
Hello and welcome to Southside Stories Season 2. And great to be back. And if you've not heard the podcast before, this is where we talk to London businesses and leaders and founders about their businesses and what they've learned and where they're at right now. And we've got a cracking episode for you in store today because I'm talking to Ed Hill. Hi, Ed.
Hi, Matt.
Ed is a founder and CEO of Intrepid Protection, which we're going to hear about in a second. But Ed has a really interesting backstory because he was a Royal Marines commando, long period of service, Iraq War and lots of experiences there before he moved into private security. And he's been working with protecting against Somali pirates and built Intrepid from there and works with royalty, celebrities, high net worth individuals globally. So fascinating backstory that we're going to hear all about now. So Ed, just to kick us off, tell us a little bit about Intrepid Protection and what is it that you do?
So Intrepid Protection, if I was to summarize it, I would say that we're a high-end intelligence-led security service. So the whole umbrella of security, it's huge. So at one end of the scale, you've got security guards at Tesco's or at McDonald's, and then at the other end of the scale, you've got the people or the services that we provide, which is the high-end stuff, which is pretty much the close protection or the bodyguards, which is the common term, and that's through the use of former British military operatives. So, and the intelligence-led side to it is more the fact that our approach is more preventative rather than reactive. Okay, so ultimately, if one of our operatives is rolling around the floor with a assailant, then it's gone too far. He hasn't, or he or she hasn't done their job. So it's all about being one step ahead, and prevention is better than cure.
Great. And we're going to hear a bit more about that in a second, but let's just rewind the clock. Let's go all the way back. You're 18, you apply to the Royal Marines, and I think perhaps your family, your parents weren't necessarily wholly in favor of that. But tell us about that experience. And I think a lot of people, including me, are fascinated the selection process to join in an outfit like that. Tell us about that. What's the selection process like?
Yeah, so as a teenager, when I was at school, I was very much into my sports, my fitness. I was a good swimmer. I was a okay footballer. I was a good runner, but I was never that good to have made it professional. So the next best thing for me was the military. And as I looked into the military, it was always the Marines that was pulling me in. And I distinctly remember as a kid going on holiday down to Dorset and going into a toy shop, and my dad pointing out the Royal Marines cap badge. And he said to me, look, these are the elite, these are the boys, these are cut above. And that always stayed with me. And fast forward to becoming an 18-year-old, as much as I did my research into other units and into other elements of the military, it was the Marines that really stood out for me.
What was the selection process like?
Much tougher than I could ever have anticipated. I don't think anything really prepares you for Marines training. Yeah, and I think from my side as well, I think the fact that it was notoriously tough, that was part of the attraction. It was the fact that if I was going to join the military, I wanted to be the best. And yeah, I know every unit, there'll maybe military people looking at this and say, oh yeah, we're the best. Everyone says that they're the best, but I think deep down, if they're honest with themselves, the Marines are the best, because they have the longest and arguably the toughest military training, but also the highest failure rates as well. So statistic wise, they used to say that out of every 200 men that applied to join the Marines, one would get through.
So really, really high bar. What was the lowest point? What was the lowest point during that training and selection process?
I think there was a lot of low points, but I think probably the first couple of weeks were the hardest for me. Yeah. And I distinctly remember every night, because initially on day one, I think there was 56 of us all in one typical military style barrack room, and you had your locker, and behind your locker was your bed. Your locker had to be immaculate. There was only a select amount of ironing boards, and you were up at like 2:00 in the morning ironing your kit and trying to get it perfect and kind of falling asleep on the iron. And every night I used to say to myself, right, tomorrow I'm going to quit. Tomorrow I'm going to go in, I'm going to quit. And I would play it out in my head of what exactly I was going to say as I approached the officer. But then next thing, you go to bed, you close your eyes, your head hits the pillow. Before you know it, you're up again. And the whole pace of that life of training was just so quick. You're rushing around, going from one serial to the next, and then before you know it, you're there again, and it's 2 a.m. in the morning, and you're ironing, and you're thinking about, right, okay, tomorrow I will definitely quit tomorrow. And then before you know it, so that initial part, that induction part, it's 2 weeks, and then before you know it, that 2 weeks is gone. And then you move into like normal accommodation block, and then it kind of eases off a little bit. So I think the lesson to be learnt from there is just kind of take it one day at a time, one step at a time. But I was definitely up for quitting.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. So it sounds mentally very tough and physically very tough as well.
Yeah.
How did you keep going? You know, on those mornings, perhaps, oh God, I'm not sure if I can do this. What kept you going?
I think it was just one big thing was every morning when you would get up, you would look around you and you would see empty lockers, empty spaces where other guys had quit. And that would give you a bit of a boost. That would think, oh, actually, I'm still here. You know, they've gone, I'm still here. So that was probably the biggest thing that kept me going. The fact that, right, okay, yeah, maybe I've got what it takes. And the other thing as well, which is definitely worth mentioning, is that on the first day, you've pretty much got a group of 56 guys who in many cases are the kind of elite of alpha males from around the UK and further afield. And I can remember you naturally like look at other guys and you see this 6'2" ripped 6-pack, Greek god. And then next thing you see that he's gone, and you think, right, okay. So yeah, maybe I've got it. And yeah, it's a great leveler in that regard, because, you kind of look around and then you see that there's a lot of guys who you probably wouldn't have thought would be there at the end, just looking at them. and yeah, they are, and they're as determined and as strong as anybody else.
When we had a pre-chat last week, and you mentioned there that you have this, well, you called it stubbornness.
Yeah.
Some people might call it tenacity, I guess, but that refusal to be beaten. Difficult question, I guess, but where do you think that comes from?
I don't. I think personal pride. Personal pride, probably more than anything. It's the fact that I don't want someone else thinking that they've got one over on me. I don't want someone else thinking and going away and saying, "Oh, Ed Hill, yeah, he quit on that," or "Ed Hill, he wasn't quite up to it." And I think that's probably the biggest driver. I certainly don't get up in the morning and think, right, okay, I'm super motivated. I kind of look at myself and it's almost like, right, okay, what are the tasks I've got to do today? And quite often the tasks are tasks that you don't want to do, but tasks that you've got to do. And it's like, right, look, yeah, I've just man up, grow a spine, grow a pair, and yeah, just get it done. It's as simple as that.
Would you describe yourself as competitive?
I don't. No, not really. No, I wouldn't. Only competitive with myself.
I was going to ask you if it came from
competitive with
internal
myself.
or from external.
Not with other people, certainly not. And again, with the big thing with the Marines as well is that there's a huge focus on teamwork. If you're not a team player, you'll get found out and you won't make it through. Teamwork is massive. There's the Commando Memorial up in the mountains of Scotland, which is where the original commandos used to go and do their training. So there's a at the bottom of it there's a script, and you know what, I can't think of it right now.
I know the town where you mean, actually, because I've been up motorbiking.
Oh God, I was gonna say, yeah.
I don't think I saw the memorial, so I can't help you out on that one.
Oh my God, what is it? I feel so, yeah. Honestly, I've had a mind blank.
It'll come back. It'll come back to you, I'm sure.
Yeah. Let me come back to. United we conquer.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's very much about having a goal, but also that we're in this together. And we're united.
Absolutely. Yeah. So basically, in World War II, when Winston Churchill decided that he wanted an elite unit of commando. So the term commando comes from it's a Afrikaans word from the Boer War. So Winston Churchill, when he fought in the Boer War, he was impressed by commando tactics used by the Boers. So in World War II, he decided he wanted to form the commandos. And up in Scotland, at a place called Speenbridge, where they used to go up, they used to do their training. That's where there's a memorial. The Commando Memorial is up there, and on the bottom it's United we conquer. So that's the emphasis on teamwork.
So 14 years later, after all of these incredible experiences and seeing, being in combat as well, of course, tell us about the decision to leave, because I guess it's quite a hard wrench, isn't it, to come out of that that camaraderie after so many years.
It was much harder than what I anticipated. I think the biggest thing for me was the loss of status. So from the age of 18 for 14 years, I'd had this. My persona was all around the fact that I was a Royal Marines Commando. I was a sniper in the Royal Marines Commando, in the Royal Marines Commandos. And also it's if ever you're meeting someone for the first time, if you're going away on a holiday and you're talking to someone on the beach, it always comes up. Oh, what is it you do? And I knew that straight away it would raise eyebrows, and everyone's interested, and it's almost instant credibility. Everyone's interested, and to lose that was probably the biggest thing for me. And my lowest point after leaving, so I left. My daughter was born. My only child was born on the Wednesday. I left on the Friday, and I've gone out to no job, a wife on maternity leave, a newborn baby, and a big mortgage. And the jobs I took on at the time were labouring jobs. So I've kind of gone from here to down here. So there's the loss of status, but also the loss of income as well.
Yeah.
And
tell us about, what does that feel like, Ed? And what does it feel like for you? And what does it feel like for people around you?
Yeah, well, for me, it was a tough time. Yeah, it was a very tough time because, as I say, the status thing was the main one. Also, the fact that you've got a family to support, and you naturally want to do your best to support your family, and you're working every hour that God sends, and you're not on the same salary, or I wasn't on the same salary that I was on before. And yeah, it really does kind of play on your own self-esteem. And yeah, it knocked me for six, if I'm honest. And yeah, but what changed that was during that time there was a big push, there was a big boom, and a big necessity for former military personnel to go out to Iraq for private security work. And that was the change. That's where I clicked back into gear, and I became myself again. But I did have, I think it was around about 9 months of that initial period of leaving the military and kind of finding myself. And that was quite a miserable time, if I'm honest. A very miserable time.
Did that trait of tenacity, did that help? Did what you learned in the Marines, did that get you through that period, or did you have to find the strength from somewhere else?
Yeah, it was difficult because I've been in an institution where I mentioned earlier with teamwork and everybody helping everyone else. I did feel very much alone. I didn't really know where to turn. I didn't really have anyone to kind of ask for advice. And I did feel lost. But then also I knew that I had to make it work. I knew that that situation I was in, it wouldn't last forever. And the fact that it wouldn't last forever was purely down to me. No one else is going to do it for me. I'd made that decision to leave. And I felt within myself I'd have to stand by that.
I guess that early experience of the training and taking one day at a time and getting through one day, and then, okay, I'm living tomorrow is another day.
Yeah.
Did that sort of, was that part of it?
Yeah, definitely. And I still carry that through now. There's times where, in business, I've had some terrible days, and rather than try and fight my way through it, I'll go to bed. I'll go to bed. I'll think, right, okay, I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to have a good rest. When I wake up in the morning, I'm going to have a completely different approach. And that's how I've generally tackled things.
Tell us about the first business you started, because I think you went into security, and I think you built a first business, and you were really focused on quality, and then found that perhaps people were not necessarily looking for quality
Yeah,
leads.
sure,
Tell us about
sure.
that.
So after being in Iraq, I took some time out. I had a couple of friends that had been killed out there. So I came back to the UK, and it was right time for a bit of a reset. And while I was sat at home, I received a random phone call asking me if I wanted to work on a super yacht. And I went on board the super yacht, which was at that time, there was a problem which was brewing of Somali pirates that were hijacking ships. So ships, whether it's super yachts, tankers, or whatever, ships that were sailing past Somalia, they were hijacking and then holding them for ransom. So I got involved with this, and it kind of snowballed, and then I could see where it was going. I could see that this problem was getting bigger and bigger, and there was no real kind of answers in sight. So that's when I decided to start my first company, which was basically providing ex-military guys or ex-British military guys, Marines, mainly, to go on board these ships and provide protection with guns and ammunition, and body armor, helmets, the full works. What happened, or how things transpired, was that most of the jobs that I done were on yachts, privately owned by billionaires, a lot of them super yachts. Now, as the Somali piracy problem was growing, a super yacht being privately owned, the owner was like, oh, actually, well, okay, there's massive insurance premiums for taking it through that stretch of the water. Security charges are on top of that. I don't have to go that way. Instead of going past Somalia, I'll go to the Caribbean instead. So how we built a business model to cater for that market, actually, that market actually disappeared. So we were forced to go down the road of commercial vessels. And commercial vessels, we were trying to provide the Rolls-Royce service to an industry that didn't want to pay Rolls-Royce prices.
Right.
So we had a lot of readjusting to do, recalibrating, and hit it from a different angle.
And how did you process that? Because, a lot of people perhaps they go down a certain route and they're not flexible, they're not adaptable to change to a market signal like that.
Yeah. It was a case of it was a case of quickly realizing that, okay, the super yachts have gone. And we've really got to, there was still a market there. That's the thing. There was still a market, and it was quite a big market. So we probably did have to tone down that Rolls Royce element to it, and adjust more to what the clients want. So in some ways it was kind of like meet in the middle, but the demand was definitely still there.
Yeah. And then you sort of pivoted, I think, with your current company, Intrepid Protection. And am I right in thinking you got one of your first contracts was out of Monaco, which you won?
Yeah.
I think a captain called you and knew of you, I guess. And I guess that referral piece is really important, I guess, in your line of work.
Oh, absolutely.
Trust.
So rewind back to my first company. So that company was going for 3 years, and the market was getting flooded with providers, and everyone was undercutting each other. It was a race to the bottom, and I learned a very hard lesson, and that company went under. So that was my first company, my first experience, and we liquidated the company. So I was then left with the predicament of, right, what do I do next? So I've kind of gone from business owner to nothing again, I guess, overnight. So I've gone from hero to zero overnight. And I've got to face the question of, right, what do I do now? Now, the easy answer for me back then would have been to call up one of my mates that was out in Iraq, see if there's any jobs going. Again, I guess in some ways it's the old boys network. And then within a few days or maybe even a few weeks, I'm back out on a flight out to Iraq, and I'm earning decent money again. But I'd done Iraq. I'd done that. And I'd lost friends out there. I'd had a few close calls myself. You have to accept that taking on these jobs does have the element of danger. So I had to ask myself some pretty serious questions, and it was, okay, well, what do you want to do? Now, I actually enjoyed the 3 years that I'd had my first company. What I enjoyed in some ways, having my own business kind of gave me that thrill. And that, I guess, the uneasiness and the unpredictability of being in the military or being out in Iraq. And so that was something that I enjoyed, and that was something that I wanted to do, but I had no money. I was completely skint. And it was a case of, right, what do I do? How can I make this work? So I started writing things down, what I could do, and, I guess a makeshift business plan, if you like. But the question constantly came over that you've got no money. I couldn't afford a website. I couldn't really afford to travel. I could barely afford to eat. And then randomly, a super yacht captain got in touch with me, a guy I hadn't heard from in about 2 years. And he said to me, he said, right, Ed, I've now got my own yacht, or I'm now captain of a yacht. And the owner wants security on board. I've put your name forward. Can you do it? So I replied, yep, no problem. Of course we can do it. He said, right, in that case, then you need to be in Monaco in 2 weeks. Can you make that? Yeah, no problem. I'll be there. And I came off the phone and I was like, oh God, right. I can barely afford to eat. How can I can't afford to get to Monaco. And then I'm like, right, 2 weeks. I've got 2 weeks. Okay. And then the cog starts in the brain's like, okay, 2 weeks. Okay, right. Phone up my friend. He's got a building company. Okay, yeah. Mate, listen, can you help me out? Any casual work going on? He's like, yeah, okay, I can give you 60 quid a day cash in hand. Right, brilliant, I'll do it. Another friend who was manager of a nightclub. Have you got any doorman work or door work or anything? He's, yeah, okay. He said, I can give you Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, 60 quid, cash in hand. Yeah, I'll do it. So that was income coming in for 2 weeks. I didn't enjoy it. I hated every day. Also, I was selling stuff on eBay. So I'm rooting through my drawers, looking for whatever I could sell, CDs that I hadn't listened to in God knows how many years. They were going on eBay. Every little helps. And then I had a friend who had a printing company, and I contacted him. I said, right, can you help me out with business cards? He's like, okay, well, how many do you need? I said, oh, maybe about 10. He's like, I can't give you 10 business cards. I was like, mate, come on. He's like, right, as it's you, Ed, right, I'll do you 20. So that was it. I've got 20 business cards, 2 weeks' time. I'm on that flight out to Nice, dressed up, and I'm heading out to Monaco. And when I got there, I met representatives of the owner. The owner was Russian, so he sent 2 girls over from Moscow, met them in Monaco, took them for lunch, and we got talking. It was initially a very, very difficult conversation, but that's purely on Russian culture. The fact that they're initially very kind of standoffish, that would not faze me at all now. But at that time, I did think, when I met these two girls and I'm trying to strike up a conversation, and it was almost poker faced, stone cold, yes, no. I was like, oh my God. I thought, yeah, this is over before it's begun. But anyway, we sat there, we spoke, and then they stood up, they left, and they said, right, we look forward to doing business. And we got the job. We got the job, which for me at that time, I mean, I was doing cartwheels around my living room.
Yeah, that must
And
have been a great moment.
oh yeah, fantastic. Yeah, yeah. Especially as what I'd kind of gone through with the business
Yeah.
closing, and the fact that bills were coming through the door, and the odds were against me. Really, the odds were against me. So we got that job. It went very well. I put good guys on it, who, God bless all of them, they did me proud. And then he then recommended, and when I say he, I mean the owner of the yacht, he then recommended us to his friend, who was another Russian yacht owner. So we got that job as well. And that went very well. And then on the back of that, he just turned around to us and said, oh, well, actually, he said, like, you guys are in London. My daughter's in London. He said, I've also got property in London. Can you look after my property? Can you provide security for my daughter? I'm like, yeah, of course. So now at that time, we didn't have the licenses. You need the operating licenses in the UK. But I applied for the licenses. We got the licenses. And then next thing, we're looking after the property. We're looking after his daughter. And then slowly, I'm getting more and more involved with, we've got 2 Russian clients now. And getting more and more involved with the Russian community, or the oligarch community, however you want to call it. Yeah, and I'm getting more and more connections in that space, and which is something
And
that
you
I
got,
really stumbled into.
yeah, it's a great it's a great story. And the other thing I love, because we talked about this briefly before, is you really immersed yourself in that Russian
Yeah,
segment, didn't you? You really
yeah.
took the time to learn about the culture, a bit of language.
Mm.
I mean, in terms of like a general business story, I mean, that's really going the extra mile to
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah,
understand
for sure. Yeah,
your customer.
yeah, yeah. So I remember so one of the people that I was introduced to was a Russian lawyer, and she invited me to an event which was it was on Bond Street. So I was invited to this event, and I didn't know it was a Russian event. I just thought it was just another normal event. So when I got there, it was all Russians. I was like one of the very few Brits there, and they're not the most approachable people naturally. So it was really kind of up to me. They're not going to really kind of come up to you. So it was up to me to go and strike up conversation. And yeah, the more I kind of asked questions and got involved and learned about them as a people, as I say, it was that kind of initial coldness. And I think a lot of people would probably find that quite off-putting, because yes, yeah, they are initially cold. Russians actually view the British as being falsely polite. Neither side is right, neither side is wrong. It's like that they'll say, oh, you meet a British person for the first time, and it's like, oh, hi, how are you, and everything. It's like, well, I don't know you, you know. And we actually view the Russians as being very, very rude. And again, it's neither side is right, neither side is wrong. It's just different cultural nuances. Once I learned that, and I learned to break that down and navigate around it, that's where things started to open up for me. And I just found Russian culture, Russian people just really interesting, really fascinating. And it was almost like a bit of a test to myself. Every time I'd meet someone for the first time, I'd be almost like analyzing um, their personality, their characteristics, their warmth, how they were. As I was getting to know more and more Russian people and actually getting to know them, that's when you find that after a period of time, usually about 6 months, once they realize that they can trust you, all the barriers are down and they're actually really, really good people. That's when you see the true warmth of Russian culture. It's just that you have to get over that initial, almost like a trial period, if you like.
Yeah.
But once you've
Very
done that,
interesting.
yeah, they're good people, they're loyal, they're good friends, and they have what I would call old-fashioned values.
There's a great book actually by somebody called Erin Mayer who worked with Netflix, and she has this brilliant book called The Culture Map. And that book is all about different cultures right across the world. And I think she has 9 different kind of behavioral types, communication or democracy, democratic kind of leadership versus very authoritarian, command-led.
Yeah.
It's a great read. She talks a lot about what you've just covered. But
Yeah,
you really made you made a really significant investment of your time there.
Yeah.
And was that because you saw the market opportunity and you obviously liked the culture and everything? But
it was a bit of both. So yes, there was opportunity there. So the other thing as well was that I think they have a real kind of deep appreciation for the military. So most of their, I guess, fathers, grandfathers served. So these are their kind of male role models. So when they meet someone that has also served, to them, it's almost like an instant validation that this guy has got good character, and so that went in my favor. The fact that the services that we provide is ex-British military, that also went in our favor. The fact that we are ex-British military, we're used to that directness, which is very much a Russian trait. They're very direct. They'll tell you exactly what they want. They won't mix their words, which is actually, as a veteran, that was actually quite good to hear. And yeah, so the more I worked with the Russians, the more I was getting sucked in. I just found them to be such an interesting group of people. Their culture I found to be fascinating. I've got some of my closest friends now, not just Russian, but Russian speaking, Ukrainian, Latvian, Lithuanian. And I just think as a people, they're a very wholesome group. And yeah, so I started to learn the language. I started to learn more about their history, their culture. I had a Russian girlfriend. I went to Russia, and yeah, all of these things really went in my favor.
So you made these really forged some trusted relationships there. You spent a lot of your personal time investing in those relationships, and you built up this Russian client base. But then, of course, 2022 rolls around. Russia invades Ukraine. You must have been before that point. This is going pretty well, right? And then suddenly the whole thing happened in Ukraine, and I think you lost a lot of your client base overnight, didn't you?
Yeah. So in the build-up to the Ukraine war, I had a lot of my Russian-speaking contacts were reaching out to me and saying, right, is this actually going to happen? Because Putin was positioning his troops right on the border with Ukraine, the Russian border. He had troops to the north in Belarus. And I said, no, he won't invade. I said, he's just flexing his muscles. He's demonstrating his military capability to the West just to show that, yeah, I'm still here. Don't mess with me. I said, but yeah, he won't invade Ukraine. Ukraine is vast. Militarily, it's going to suck up a load of resources. Yeah, it's not a good strategic move to invade Ukraine. He won't do it. And then one morning I got up, I switched on the TV, and I was like, oh my God, he's done it. He's only gone and done it. And yeah, he calls it the special operation. And I think he gave himself 4 days to do it. You know, here we are now, 2026, and it's still going on. And it's still very much a stalemate, sadly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I knew at that time, as I watched that clip on the news, I knew that, right, this is gonna hit me. And one by one, I kind of saw my clients leave. Now, at that time, there was a massive clampdown, if you like, on, it was almost like everything Russian. It was like Russia became the public enemy number one. I've got very, very good friends who are not oligarchs or politically connected. In fact, I've got clients or former clients that I know for a fact were not politically connected, but everybody seemed to be hit with that blanket exposure of you're Russian, you're guilty. And I mean, it was, out and out racism, really. Because, if that would have been another ethnic group, I think there would have been uproar about it. But for some reason, because it was Russians, it was almost like, they're fair game. And yeah, a lot of them went through a very, very tough time.
So Ed, So Ed, you hit obviously another sort of inflection point in the business. So losing your client base like that. I think you were down to your last 25 quid.
Yeah.
Weren't you, after that happened?
Yeah. So what happened was I had a very, very difficult few months from there. I came to the realization that I put all my eggs into the Russian basket. Now, rightly or wrongly, you can say, right, okay, I'd carved out a niche, which is what I'd done. And yeah, some people could sit on the view from the outside and say that, yeah, I probably made a mistake there. But then again, as I say, I had carved out a niche. But who would have predicted that Putin would have invaded Ukraine? If you'd have said like 1 year before, it would have never have happened. So, yeah, it's a quick realization that, okay, it is what it is. We are where we are, and deal with it. So I then thought, right, I really got to now try and drum up clients from another group, which I did. But I think as I was doing that, there was my business is very much a relationship built business. So I was trying to build relationships quickly. And while I was doing that, my bank balance was getting lower and lower and lower. And yeah, the lowest point was I went to my bank. I put in my card in the cash point. I checked out the statement or checked out the balance, and it was 25 quid. And it was almost like the cartoon moment, the cartoon where the eyes pop out. Yeah. And my eyes like popped out to here. And it was like, read it again, like 25 quid. I thought, oh my God, it's 25 quid. Only 25 quid. And then I just got this, this kind of surge of, right, I need to address this. I've got to address this. And then it came up on the screen, do you want any other service? So I was like, yes, mini statement. So I printed out the mini statement and I put it in my back pocket. And I was like, right, I'm going to keep that. I am never going to let this happen again. And I've kept that mini statement. I kept it. I've put it in a frame. I've got it right here. So there it
you
is.
go. There, that is the actual statement.
Yeah, £25 in my account. I've kept it. I've framed it. It's on my desk, and that's there as a, I guess, as a bit of a motivational tool to tell me that one, I'm never going to let that happen again, and two, to prove that I can make it back. That when the time comes, when your back's against the wall, you don't really have much choice but to roll up your sleeves, look it in the eye, and hit it head on.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I
Great
did.
story. Great story.
Yeah.
And again, it's back to your stubbornness, tenacity, refusing to be beaten.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. And again, it's life can hit you with some pretty unexpected and cruel blows.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't discriminate. And I say to my daughter, there's two choices. If my daughter comes to me with a problem, a complaint, and it's a bit of a catchphrase, so right, two choices. Choice number one, sit in the corner, cry, feel sorry for yourself. It gets you nowhere. Nobody cares. They don't. That's the reality of it. No one cares. Or number two is look that problem in the eye, grit your teeth, roll up your sleeves. It's not going to be pretty, and just go for it. Hit it hard, hit it back. And it's as simple as that.
Great story. Well, let's forward right to the current time then. So you've now built, you came back from that really strongly. Yeah. What does your business look like now, Ed?
Yeah, so at the moment we've got just over 50 former British military male and female operatives on our books. Now is actually the busiest time of the year because as we know into the British summer, this is when we get a lot of the Middle Eastern people mainly come to London. They want protection. A lot of them come to London for the summer. They occupy properties. Their properties want protection. So this is when we're our demands are at their highest. Mm-hmm. Again, it's a bad reflection on society, with certainly in London with the crime rate, but there's always winners and losers. Mm-hmm. And yeah, as bad as the crime rate is, and it's not good certainly not good for the UK, but it helps. It's good for our business. Mm-hmm. And I said earlier, as long as there's turmoil in the world, people like me will never be out of work.
Yeah, that's very, very true. So it sounds like it's going really well right now. Where would you like to take it next?
There's always opportunities. You never know where the next boom, if you like, is going to come from. So I've mentioned a couple of booms during this conversation. So we had the Iraq boom directly after President Bush declared that the war was over. So there was a huge boom there for private security. A few years later, there was a massive boom for maritime security as a result of the Somali piracy situation. At the moment, I would say there's more of a trickle with demand. What hasn't helped us is the fact that there's so many millionaires and billionaires have left London and are not coming to London. That has had an impact, but I think the other side to it is the flip side is that crime is still a problem. I think a lot of the public have lost faith in the police. So therefore, if they can afford private security, just to give them that peace of mind, that's where we come in. So yeah, I think from my side, it's just a case of just keep going, keep providing the solid, reliable service, but then also keep one eye open for the next opportunity as well.
Great. Well, Ed, thank you so much. That's a fascinating story there. And, if I was going to pick out a few things from this conversation, your resourcefulness, when you were going to that first Monaco gig, all the things you did there, that you dug deep to find a way to get there.
Yeah.
I love the story about, really understand your customers with that Russian base of customers, really taking the time and building that trust. But I think the thing that really comes through really strongly of all is just your tenacity and that refusal to be beaten. And I think that's part of you, and it's part maybe that Marines background.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
coming in there.
yeah, I think so. But I think if you study successful entrepreneurs, if there's one bit of advice that they all give, it's don't give up, never give up. Every one of them will say, I think every one of them hits that point, those dark times where you naturally question yourself. That's when most people, they'll reach that crossroads of, right, okay, do I go back to a job? Do I go back to what I was doing before, back to the comfort zone, or do I push through? And that's the difference.
Great way to end the conversation. Yeah, don't give up, keep going.
Yeah,
and
definitely. There's always a way. There's always a way. Yeah, definitely.
Ed, thank you so much for that. That was a really fascinating conversation, and best of luck with the business.
My pleasure. Thank you.